Hello everyone, Santa here with another update to Let's Make a Game Astral Collision, and let's see if I can remember all the stuff that's happened. I guess one thing that's immediately obvious from this screen is this bit right here. So there's been a bunch of little things that have happened, and I'm not quite sure the best order, but let's go ahead and start there. In fact, you can actually see, if you look in a number of places on the map, that I've added a number of towns to Kendra. Now, I haven't really done anything. I think I was talking about this is the thing that happens. A week's a long time, and it can be difficult to remember what I discussed last time. I think I talked about this mountain route stuff. If I haven't, you can let me know. This is kind of like the northern Sindire. So Sindire is let's kind of review things. Sindire is this area right here. This is the surface of Sindire. But in actuality, most of Sindire is located underground. It's located within these subterranean cities. And so this was kind of an area where I could kind of plan some of the layout of stuff. So this is going to be mountain route, just representationally, just to give me some planning space, somewhere to kind of think through the arrangements of things. So we have, within Mountain Route itself, we have kind of the top portion with its little subway hub, because you have a lot of subways that get you places inside here. And actually, so, man, yeah, it's hard to remember. Part of it is, like, what did I talk about on the stream versus here? This is part of the industrial zone. This is another middle section. The industrial zone will kind of come down here. Come down here as well. This is the government offices. This is the military headquarters. This is the sort of subway hub area. So military HQ here. This is converted from the old subway hub. So the basic structure here is that there were a bunch of outlying cities that are all connected through subway systems, like advanced railways, bullet train type stuff. And the enemies of this area are kind of Doom-inspired. D-O-O-M, sometimes that sounds like D-U-N-E. D-O-O-M, the 1990s video game franchise by id Software. And so they are in, like, various places. So they had other towns, other cities that they're going on that were conquered. Or kind of in the process of being fought over. And kind of more trying to defend, trying to stop them from getting into this place and all that sort of stuff, whatever. So, yeah, because I have stuff. I think I talked about some of this last time. But anyway, that's where that is. Then they have the new subway hub here with the different lines. And I was just thinking, oh, okay, I can match the color here that I'm using to the appropriate thing here for the line of, like, where it goes. And then we have other areas. Like, I've outlined sort of where the walls should be, and that's kind of all that's happened there in the past. So I haven't really done anything with this week. So I think I talked about most of that stuff last week. But I've been wanting to flesh out stuff with Kendra. One of the things that I wanted to do is right here, having this connect up properly with a place where your boat can be respawned if you take the train here. Because right now, or previously I should say, I just had this little nub right here. So you could step out, but if you didn't take your boat here, you couldn't get it here. So I added the town of Isleholm, right here. And this town, when you enter it, if we go back to the world map, you can see that I've laid out the town, but I haven't filled out any of the buildings yet. This is common. It takes a while to fill out a bunch of interiors and stuff. So, but if we go back here and I show you, if you have boat rentals on, so that means you've rented the boat. When you enter this town, it will position your boat at one of the docks inside. Where did it go? Isleholm. I think over here, something like that. You'll eventually get a ship as well a ship, I say, a motorboat, and that'll probably go at one of these other docks once you have that. But I haven't added that into the game yet. I don't know where you're going to get it. I do need to stretch out my shadow lines. This roofing system right here does not automatically put the shading sort of thing, which is done with this pen. So I like to make sure I manually extend it, not quite that far, to about there, because I think that looks a lot better than leaving it partially and not all the way across. I've also added Altus. Again, I have made the layout of the town. I've not put anything in it. I do need to figure out where I'm putting more monuments, particularly in the southern part here. So this is south of Weston. So let me close Iron Hill here. I was looking at that for other reasons earlier. So the world, this right here is Altus, and this right here is Portress. I seem to like to end things in S's, apparently. These are just like random words, randomly constructed words from my brains. This is still being built, but you can see there's a bunch of waterfalls and stuff here. You're going to have something you can enter in over here. And again, like lots of farms. One of the things I do want to emphasize with some of these is like, yeah, people grow food. They need to do that. So that can be something that can be lacking in games sometimes. So I've been adding some of those outposts, which has been an important thing to me to do. So the bigger stuff has been from the playtest that I did on Friday. So again, those are noon Pacific Daylight Time is what I've been doing them at. Again, this does air a couple weeks after I record it. So there is a bit of a delay, a week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that, because I want to make sure that I have stuff prepared so that we have some buffer to work with if something happens or whatever, so that these can come out regularly, but it does mean that there's a delay. So if you want to see more up-to-date recent stuff, you can check out the VODs for those live streams, or you can even drop it in. You're certainly welcome to do so. So also there's a link to my Discord down below. I do stuff there as well, or I have started posting a little bit of stuff in a specific channel I made recently for Astral Collision. If you're interested, you can always go there to ask me questions in real time. So there were several things that came up during the playtest. One of the big ones, like there's a few little things here and there that needed to be fixed. A few little bug fixes and things like that. I don't honestly remember what a lot of them were offhand. But one of the big ones was information. Specifically, the player needing to be able to get information feedback about how effective their attacks were against enemies. And so to that end, let's go ahead and open this up so I can show some stuff off. To that end, I did some work on trying to figure out a good way to communicate that. So I've added a couple of things. First of all, the Adventurer's Kit now has a bestiary. And the way that this works, I'll get into later. But you can see here, there's just different enemies listed. This number actually is the kill count. So I've killed 11 giant rats since adding this functionality in. And if I click on this, it brings up this. So this page gives you information about giant rats. There's a little bit of a description, descriptive text about them. You can see their basic statistics. The key things that I wanted to share with this are actually the loot and this right here, the damage type that they deal and how effective types are against them. I experimented around with a couple of different ways of representing this. I don't want to give you exact multiplier values. I wanted to instead give some sort of representative. And originally I had like text that read like, oh, this is normal. So C is dead average. Academically, I feel like B is kind of more average. But anyway, in this system, C is average. Like, that's average damage. It is a multiplier of 1. So if you see a C, you know it's a multiplier of 1. C minus is going to be a little bit lower than that. D plus, obviously, these guys resist slashing and striking a bit. It's not great against them. Piercing is better against them, right? It's a B minus. So that's from C plus to B minus, right? So that's up a bit. So these are like quintiles. So it's every 20%. So below 1, that 20% below 1, 0.8 to 1 basically, or just below 1, is a C minus, and then so these like might be 75%, right? The 0.6 to 0.8 is D plus, and down to F for less than 20%. It will say if it's immune to something as just like straight up immune. So for example, if I open up my bestiary and look at an air ooze, it will tell you it's immune to wind. And again, there's potentially some useful information over here in these descriptions. So you can move around, by the way, while you're in this mode. And if you get a random encounter, it like goes big and out and then disappears. And then when you come back to the screen, it will still be there. It's kind of interesting. So I'll go over some of how this works in a moment. You can also see if they have some states effect, if they're immune to a state, or if they resist a state, or if they're vulnerable to a state. That information will be presented here as well. But anyway, I use this this lettering system, so you can see like slashing, striking, and piercing are all terrible against these things. The text that I had sort of worked, but it took more time to mentally process because you had to read the text. And the other bigger issue with it is there was certain degrees of ambiguity. I had phrases like somewhat more effective and a bit more effective. And it's like, some of these are very clear, like very effective versus a bit more effective. It's clear which one is stronger, but some of them were a little bit like, I can't 100% remember which one this is. So I felt that the letter stuff was less ambiguous. And again, I wanted to kind of abstract this a little bit. I didn't want to give raw numbers. I feel that that presents a better presentation. You don't necessarily need to see the exact multiplier, I feel. And I'd rather just kind of give these letter grades. But here you can see that air oozes are very weak to both metal and ice. So those are very good to use against air oozes. And that's a useful piece of information to remember. You can also see that they drop cherries all the time. And they have a chance of dropping goo 50% of the time, and a chance of dropping another goo 20% of the time. Which means that they're, like, I could potentially have tried to combine this, but it would be incorrect to say that they have a 70% chance of dropping ooze. Of dropping goo, excuse me. They have both a 50% chance and a 20% chance, which is like, statistically, there's a slightly higher chance because, I forget exactly how this works. So if you want the chance that they drop at least one goo, I don't think it's quite 70%. I'd have to look at how probability combinatorics work. It's complicated. But yeah, so it's not quite 70%, and there's a chance that they drop 2 goos as well, right? There's that one's probably like a 0.1% chance of getting 2 goos, so 1 in 10 chance of getting 2 goos, I think. Again, I'd have to review probabilities. It's something that's not stuck in my head super well. I haven't done too much of that lately. But anyway, ask me about other types of graphs and stuff, and I can help you. So that's information that is provided here. That's not the only thing that I did, though. I also did, so if we, I don't know, if we just attack, oh, that was probably a poor choice. This air ooze is actually weak to that, and I know that now because I looked at it. Let's backstab this giant rat. That works somehow. And let's club this other giant rat. So you'll notice right here it says, that excelled a bit. This is the current language I'm working with. That was resisted a lot. That was resisted a bit. That was resisted a bit. That was resisted a bit. And no particular modifiers on these, because it's normal. That excelled a lot. Wow, it did. That was a critical hit, too. So, and plus, I'm over-leveled for these guys. The main point of showing the stats is to give kind of a feel of where you are relative to their level. So, Yeah, okay. I feel like... Frost Strike that. Frost Strike I know does normal damage to them. I think that if they resist... This deals wind damage. I'll talk about these in a moment, if I haven't already. Resisted a bit. That was resisted, so it did reduce damage. Okay, and we took that thing down. So you can see that I added some messages there. I went through a lot of, like, what should I do with this? So you'll notice that... Devin McElroy, there we go, got to his name, was wielding a club that had this cherry smash thing. This NPC is the dude that I've added that will craft clubs associated with the standard elements. So they slightly boost that stat, and then they give you a special attack that basically adds that stat plus your plus a little bit of the relevant damage type. So, for example, Orange Club gives you Orange Smash. Orange Smash will take your fire stat plus like 15 or something. I forget exactly what it is, but it adds that to the damage and makes it deal fire damage. So it's a special fire damage attack. Excuse me. I wanted to have some sort of way of adding additional elemental damages. This would actually be really good against the fire oozes. They're weak to earth, and this Apple Smash deals earth damage. But I wanted to add some additional ways of getting some elemental damage types around. Clubs can be wielded by literally everyone, so this was a way of adding some flexibility. This guy will also make you offhands that are for specific elements. So the Applewood focus. Oh, I can make Mishizo one of these. I think I wanted to make her the grape one, now that I think about it. But you can make focuses here for boosting specific stuff. So if I go over to her and I equip this, you'll notice this has a huge immediate impact on her max MP, but it also boosts her water by a good 9 points. Which a wind one would have more effect because it does have a bit of a multiplier in there. But specifically I want to boost her water or her earth, and her water is higher, because those are part of from the shadows, so this would allow those to be more effective. And she's not really doing anything with wind. It gives her some initial starting stuff, but currently she doesn't have anything that does anything. Well, that's not entirely true. It would boost the spell sword stuff she's using that does both the lightning and the ice spell sword stuff she's wielding with her spell swords training do benefit from wind. So anyway, so those are some of the things that I added that are kind of important. So let's go ahead and close this. So let's talk about how the bestiary works. If we go into common events, this is where we open the bestiary. And we use the Adventurer's Kit, we open the bestiary, and we use the bestiary control common event. That's how we do it. So we ask for view which bestiary entry, and that's assigned to a thing, and then we play a sound effect. We use this script that says open bestiary, game variables.value1, which is temp, and then we wait 60 frames. This is really important because then we switch over to the closed bestiary, which closes the bestiary by erasing the picture. Wait, erasing a picture? What's going on now? We'll get to that in a moment. But if I don't have this wait right here, these checks for cancel or OK button being pressed will go right away, potentially. So I want to leave a little bit of time for input to reset before I begin checking for this. And all this does is it just hangs around and says, hey, I'm looking for either of these inputs while this switch viewing the bestiary is on. So we turn this switch on. This activates this common event, and once you push a button, it erases the picture, it turns the switch off, and it plays the cancel sound effect for closing it. So I found that having the sound effects there really makes it feel integrated into the game and makes it feel like a part of it, rather than some weird side thing. So these are indeed pictures. These use the picture functionality. And the way that that is kind of set up to work, if we go over to the script here, is you can see some stuff we'll talk about later. But if we go, open bestiary right here. This script, it didn't really need to be a function, but this is kind of where I ended up putting it. So you give it the item ID, and it says show picture item ID dot name. Okay, we'll go over that in a moment. It goes into picture slot 1, and this is just some standard stuff. The origin is in the upper left, not in the center. We position it on screen coordinates 0, 0, so it's the upper left corner. Scale is 100, so it's not being shrunk at all. This is for blend mode. I'm just using blend mode normal. And this is the opacity. This goes from 0 to 255. So this is why it's slightly transparent. I wanted to make it slightly transparent so that way you could see if you started moving that you were in fact moving and stuff like that. So I wanted you to be able to kind of see through to see that, because this does not lock you in place or anything. It doesn't end when you move. So if you want to like read a bestiary entry while you're walking along the road, you can technically. I'm okay with that functionality, but let me know what you think. So this is the part that really does something. This grabs data items item ID.name. So what's going on here, if we go back over to here, is we have items. Specifically, if I come all the way down here, we have items named after enemies. So if we look at enemies, we have giant rat, for example, and forgotten spirit. These have the exact same name. And what's going on is we are using the picture with the name of this item because all of the pictures for the entries have that same name. So if I go over into common events, because it's an easy place to show it, and I go show picture right here, what we're effectively doing is we're basically doing, what is that, like 228? We're basically doing this where we're selecting the appropriate picture, right? So we display the appropriate picture. And that's based on the name of the item. So that's how it's hooked up. The name of the item is the name of the picture. And these are all just named after the various enemies. This is not a big enough window to really be able to see the full thing because it's full screen sized, but you can see that I have one for all currently existing enemies, including fire imps, which spawn. I think this is a new addition. These spawn currently in a couple of groups down here on the Sindara Island. They will absolutely wreck you because they're designed for level 60 characters, theoretically. And so, like, your level 10 characters get absolutely destroyed by them. They don't do very much. They can only attack and use Incinerating Fury, but they are not geared for the level that you are because you're not supposed to go there yet. And you can see their effectiveness and all that stuff. Most of these enemies show up in Kendra, and so the information about them is related to that. So basically what I'm doing is programmatically using the item's name to select the image because the image name is what's used to determine the image, and so when I give it the same string, it hooks up. So that's why scripting saves you a ton of time, because otherwise I would have to manually check which item ID it was that you selected and show the appropriate picture, and that would be a giant nightmare. It would take forever. The way that these are hooked up, by the way, is there's now this bestiary entry. Bestiary with this number right here is the item number. So item 200, if we go back to our items, is our giant rat. So you can see that that's how that is hooked up. Now, the way that works, if we go back over into our code here, is, and this might take me a moment to find, actually, I can find it more quickly if I just do bounty. So this function right here, make drop items, I've now added this thing. If the enemy has a bestiary tag, then you gain that item. You gain a copy of that item in the bestiary tag when you kill them. This is silent. It is not shown as part of your loot. I don't have a good way to make that part of your loot, nor do I have a desire to make it part of your loot. But it is an invisible part of your loot. Now, these items are technically classified as hidden items. There are two groups of hidden items, hidden item A, hidden item B. These are really useful for basically making those menus like what you saw I was selecting in the bestiary. Because these are hidden, they're not shown to the player. They don't see them in their inventory, but they do possess them in their inventory. And so you can say, again, common events, bestiary control, select item from hidden item A. And so this allows me to be able to make a menu this way. You can set up all sorts of stuff with the hidden items as menus like this. And it's a very convenient way of being able to ask the player for a dynamic set of possible inputs using hidden items. So this is a way that those hidden items could become very useful. And so what I've done is I've silently grafted on these hidden items as part of your loot from defeating enemies, and this is why it's going to also function as a kill count, because it will demonstrate how many you have killed. Now, one of the things that you saw that I was doing, potentially if you were looking, with these items is I've set the max to 9,999, so it will record up to that amount. I still need to adjust stuff so that way it better supports counts above 99, because that colon that you might have seen when I was playing the game, there's a colon there that precedes the count, the item count, and that will overlap with the item count. I think what I'll probably do is I'll just remove that colon because I don't need it, but I haven't looked into that yet. There's been a few other important things going on too, but that covers the bestiary system almost. There's one more thing to talk about, and that's this. This right here is a program I made in order to make these bestiary pages. So this is how I'm making them. So if I select the giant rat, for example, you'll see it loads a bunch of stuff up. This loads stuff up from the JSON files that this makes. So if I go over to the giant rat enemy, you can see right here, there's a tilde, and then the description for the giant rat is right here. So this provides me with allows me to store the description, because this doesn't actually save anything. This program has no save files, but what it does is it is aggressively hard-coded to hook up to like this background image that I made in Affinity by Serif, which is the art program that I like to use for this sort of thing. That's more artsy. It's kind of like a Photoshop variant, a Photoshop competitor, but it's like actually affordable. So, if you're looking for an alternative to Photoshop, that's, pretty good quality. I'm quite happy with the quality of it. It does a lot of the stuff that I want. Not necessarily 100% everything in the filters angle that Photoshop does, but really solid otherwise. Affinity by Serif is one that I highly recommend as a paid product that is actually at a fairly affordable price. But enough shilling very useful art programs. Very happy with that purchase, though. We have, what this does is, it's hard-coded up to a bunch of stuff, and it reads the JSON data files. And so it parses the JSON using Newtonsoft's JSON NuGet package. This is written in C#, .NET stuff. And it will just grab all of this information from those, including like state rates and stuff. So like if I go to the harrower, you can see that sleep is resisted, for example. And if we go over to this page, it will just say sleep is immune. But you can see it. It just grabs the raw data, and then I can process that, including taking the hue shift, which, let me tell you, that was a whole journey in code. I took the hue shift and then had to figure out how to actually shift the image hue by that amount, because I'm grabbing the raw sprites from the folder as well. And the hue shift algorithm took a bit to get working, in part because I screwed something up where I had a multiplication sign instead of an addition sign in my matrix math. And let me tell you, that made things look wrong. Buzzkills were very bright blue because I had screwed it up in the blue component. So it was making everything go wonky. But we're not here to talk about matrix math. So the way that this works then is I just spent a bunch of time laying stuff out. It just automatically populates most of this. It does not technically automatically populate this. And just as you type, it will fill this in. And for the initial like loading up the program, it reads the note field and it just says, hey, everything after the tilde is supposed to be the description. So just fill that in as the description. So that's why Vile Ooze, or like if I switch back to this, that's what's stored in it, right? It doesn't save anything here. So it's just like, hey, that's what this thing has. I'll go grab it. So anyway, I hit the export button, and it will save it to the pictures folder, and that's that. So I spent a bunch of time writing this program, but now it's going to be really easy when I make a new enemy to just run this program. It will automatically add that enemy to the list because it'll read it from it. It'll automatically populate all of this. It'll automatically set up the sprite. It'll automatically put the name there. It'll automatically put this nice little line here. And then I can fill in this description, sort of typing, and like I said, like you can see it over there as I go. So I have to manually, because I can just go way over here if I want to. I have to manually enter in word wrap, but that's not too big of a deal. We do that all the time in RPG Maker already. So that's how I'm actually making the bestiary pages. This was a lot of work, but I'm really pleased with it and proud of the result, and looking forward to making more enemy entries this way. The Fire Imp does not actually have a bestiary entry yet, because I am being very intentional about the order that I'm placing these, because I want them to be kind of encounter order. And let's face it, Fire Imps are not supposed to be encountered early. So that's where we get to this that I've been working on. Level ranges. I've been trying to determine about what level enemies should be aimed at in any given area. This is very much so a work in progress still. Things in italics are interiors. These are stuff that's not italicized, is just world map regions. So yeah, I've been slowly kind of trying to figure out what does world progression look like. And so you can see that like Ron Piety, Mavina invasion is supposed to be about 10 to 15. So that's, if we shift hard from there over to here, this is Mavina. Mavina is invading the north of Ron Piety. So the idea is you get out of Kendra at about level 9, 10. Playtests have shown that you get here about 1.5 to 2 hours at about level 10 so far, I think, is roughly what playtests have ended up at. 8, 9, 10, somewhere in that general area. So you get the boat. You could potentially go over here. Where you're supposed to go plot-wise is down here. This world map is not arranged in a way that naturally directs you to where you're supposed to go, which in retrospect was not a good decision, but here we are. We're going to live with it, and it's going to be that sort of game. I'm okay with this. This area is going to be a bit over-leveled for where you're supposed to be. Again, that is Evanshire. And if we look at this, where Evanshire appears, Evanshire Woods is 12 to 16, so that's supposed to be somewhat reasonable for where you're at, maybe a little above. The Haunted Woods area is going to be a bit higher still, and the Haunted Mansion a little bit down from the Haunted Woods. So, like, those are not supposed to be super high level. You're fine stopping in Evanshire on your way to Ron Piety, and you'll probably be a little over-leveled for Ron Piety, but the plot wants you to get a boat from here, sail it all the way down. This is so stupid, but sail it down all the way over to here and like begin doing stuff up here. That's what the plot wants you to do. That's probably a terrible idea, but that's what the plot wants you to do. And I'm sticking with it. It is going to be that kind of game. And you know what? I'm going to be cool with it. So, yeah, anyway, these dudes are supposed to be kind of in the 10 to 15 level range. So, fairly equivalent to these reaches. These reaches are supposed to be about that as well. So, if we go over to our handy-dandy notes again, you'll see Southern Kendra is 8 to 15. The burnt area is 14 to 16. That's about where some of the Ron Piety is. Ron Piety Fanatics is specifically referring to sort of the splinter group of priests and that are disagreeing with... They basically interpret the event of the astral collision as judgment instead of what they're supposed to endure in order to be able to be a blessing to the world. That's the long and short of it. And then Tulador Spillover. You can see Ron Piety has a lot of random stuff going on. So if we go back... Like, one of the things here is Ron Piety does not have natural enemies. Most of these other regions have natural enemies, but Ron Piety does not. So you have kind of in these reaches down here, you're going to have the fanatics who are splintered off and are not representative of, yes, roughly this area, are not representative of the majority of Ron Piety citizens, but they are kind of doomsday cultists or whatever. And so you're going to be combating them in some of these areas. This is Tulador down here, and kind of along this edge. And spillover means that some of these areas are going to see enemies from Tulador, because this is like a big continent area. This is Yorgot Est. You're going to get some spillover here from Yorgot Est, and you're going to get some spillover here from Tulador. Then you're going to get invading forces from Avina up in these northern reaches, and the fanatics down here. Because there's not normal enemies, they're going to be borrowing enemies from other areas. And so Tulador has some spillover. You're not supposed to want to go to Yorgot Est, so these things are higher level, which is reflected over here in these documents. 30 to 40 is sort of the level range I'm aiming for those at. Tulador itself is supposed to be about this 20 to 25 range, same as the spillover. Sindire is much higher level. I'm not sure where Mavina proper is going to be. Places like Falsaw are going to be significantly higher. And Kushigai is probably going to be pretty high leveled as well. It's all just a process of like figuring out what all these things are going to look like. But that's kind of explaining what some of those are. I also spent some time figuring, that is not the right thing. Spent some time figuring out more, once this document loads, about, here's stuff about the Sindire's military. I think I talked about this last time, though. I feel like I went in great detail on these, so I'm not going to talk about them now, and if I didn't, you can just let me know. Falsaw, I think I talked about this as well. So as Evanshire, I've figured out the monster lore for. So if we go over here, just to give some context, and rather than kind of read the notes, I'll kind of discuss stuff here, I think. This is confusing. That's not enemies. So Evanshire, Elsana thinks, that's not what I'm looking for, but has 4 enemy graphics. This, and this. What I've decided the lore of these is these are kind of like, you know what, this is going to help if I pan the map over to Evanshire. So right here's Evanshire. Let's go. I'm trying to figure out how I want to frame these, and I need to remember to make sure I'm avoiding my face so you can actually see stuff. Yeah, go off the edge of the screen and into the other screen where I have OBS recording things. Okay. Here we go. This is arranged now, so that way we can kind of give context. So this enemy graphic, and there'll probably be a couple of varieties shifting through hues. Ooh, that one's kind of cool. Are going to show up in this Haunted Woods area. So this area up here. This is the Haunted Woods of Evanshire, and it's going to be filled with these guys. This Sweet Lolita is apparently what they decided to call this. This is going to appear exclusively within this Haunted Mansion area. And then the Succubi sprite and the Skeleton sprite, these are going to show up in the rest of the wooded areas. That's where these enemies are going to show up. And that's what these sprites are that I'm working with. This, and this. So with that context in mind, the 4 categories of enemies are the Enticer, which is using the succubus sprite, and it entices men and women to join her in endless dance. They live in the ordinary forest around the area. They're usually accompanied by the dancing remains of their victims, and they deal life damage. They like to inflict fascination a lot, and they're kind of boogeymen in their stories. So, you know, you always have sort of the childhood nightmare, boogeyman, monster out in the woods types of stories. Particularly in a society like this that has very strict social controls, you're going to have a lot of external scary things. And so they're going to be out in the woods. You have the enticed, which are skeletons. These are the remains of someone that was enticed by an enticer to endless dance. And they are found with the enticers. They're never by themselves. Enticers could potentially be by themselves. But you'll generally find groups that are enticer and they're enticed. That's generally what the mobs are going to look like. And there'll probably be some varieties of these. And then the death graphic is going to be a soul eater. They're in the Haunted Woods, and they use a lot of draining skills. And then the sweet little eaters are going to be called witches. They are in the Haunted Mansion, and they use a lot of spells. So that's kind of the idea. Remember, the people of Evanshire, if I go over to our good old religion document, which is way more than just religion, but it's kind of more of a broad world building document. Evanshire they're given a world where conformity reigns. Love of righteousness becomes a love for the appearance of righteousness, which enforces a sort of cultural mandated set of behaviors seen as morally right. Basically, these guys have really strict social mores, and breaking out of them gets you sort of ostracized and stuff. They came to worship a sterilized memory of the creator, and greater emphasis is placed on social cultural conformity than on the pursuit of the truth. We see this sort of thing happening in our own world. So, Evanshire is a very rigid society with an incredibly complicated and strict set of moral principles that have replaced the creator with moral laws, violation of moral law, which is also culturally entangled, including social standards and social norms. Think homeowner association crossed with religious legalism, carries strict and devastating consequences. Conformity is king. If you don't behave according to social law, you'll suffer consequences like denial of food and water, shunning, banishment to the cursed manor in Dead Woods, the northwestern part of the island. Execution if severe enough, repeated often enough. This is often very merciless society because showing mercy often comes with serious consequences. Aesthetic is high Victorian. Player will have to contend with inquisitors. This was kind of initial idea. I don't know that this is really going to pan out. Discussions with most residents maybe don't happen much. I don't know. This was kind of some initial planning. This is probably inaccurate to what it's going to be now. But we have the people that were banished, that were exiled, and they wanted a new place to live. They brought about the astral collision. That sort of concept. There's a big tree right here. It might be a little hard to see. Here, let me close these and zoom in a bit. It makes it a little bit more pixely, but right here is a giant tree sprite. You're going to be able to find them right here. This is mostly where you're going to find them. I'm not quite sure what all of these other buildings are yet. This is like the main area. There's going to be a lot of very uniform forms. There's going to be a lot of copy and paste, quite bluntly, in order to make these. Because, again, conformity is king. This is all about conformity here. So... so I figured out what's going on there. Any other things that I need to talk about? Let's see, I talked about these skills right here. Yeah, it's 15 plus your relevant stat, and it deals that type of damage. It costs 22 TP. Your standard issue thing. It's quite useful, though, to be able to have these on some clubs. I don't remember if I did this last time or if it was this time, but I buffed club damage, and I also buffed pipe damage. Pipes are going to be strong early and kind of fall off, so I definitely need to make sure you get access to pipes semi-early. Clubs scale with your level in addition to other things, so they kind of can retain a little bit more usefulness. Oh yeah, that reminds me. One other big thing that I did is over here. This is probably the last thing to talk about, but Control the Music now has stuff set for all the places. This is one of the other things actually that I found in my playtest was I had a couple of these that did not properly turn off music. So rather than scroll through giant lists, like what this does, just to review, is this gets your player region through a function that looks for your player region. And this is why temp will sometimes be given random values, because it's based on what region you're in. And this is always going, right? It's a parallel trigger. So this happens every frame. And it says, hey, if the advance is on, that means we changed zones, we turn the advance off, and we set the audioscape to -1, which makes it change. So there's basically two things that'll make this change. The first one is the day-night cycle changing. So that advancing will trigger an audioscape change, and changing region will trigger a change. So basically, the world map audioscape is taken when you, like, this is the one that's stored as, and then temp will grab it and check, hey, if the world map audioscape does not equal temp, then we go through here and we say, what should be. Now this divided by 10 here, this math.floor of the get player region divided by 10. Player regions are used for predominantly for determining encounters. So Kendra has the 10 to 19 range. So if I take 11 and I divide it by 10, I'll get 1.1. The floor of that is 1. Same with 19. 19 divided by 10 is 1.9. The floor of that is 1. So that gets me my proper indexing into this. I've talked about this before, but it's been quite a while, so I think it doesn't hurt to review it. So there are several different regions, and this is how I identify which one you're in order to figure out what sounds should be playing. So if it's nighttime, I play this night sound, which is the one you should be familiar with. It's that. You hear it a lot in the game. You have to tell it to stop or it won't. And then, we'll play the music for the area. You're familiar with this one too, because it plays in Kendra all the time. And I need to tell it to stop. We're just going to keep playing. So I went through all of the other areas, and I picked out music for them, and some areas do other things. So rather than kind of like scroll through this and all that stuff, it's probably going to be best if I just boot up the game again, and I go, yeah, sure. And I go wander around the world map a little bit, and show you. These guys are far enough in the game. I've done some additional random stuff on them, so they're a little bit higher level. That reminds me, there is one other thing that I did that I talked about on the stream but I didn't hear. I added to this area. So originally this area, you could only go in through this bottom route. You'd always just spawn here. That turned out to be really annoying, because if you look at the world map, if I come out here and I want to get to anywhere else, I have to walk all the way around here, when it just connects in really simply right over here, right? So I added a thing here. Let me get this cursor out of the way. I added a thing here to have a connection over on the side. Okay, let's go get my boat. I need my boat. This map will always have your boat. So, now at night, it's just plays waves while you're out here in the ocean. Oh, that reminds me of something else that I had to fix, that I did. This is like the random arbitrary thing that's really easy to overlook, but it's actually kind of important. Oh, I should talk about some of these things too. Okay, we'll get to that in a moment. Yeah, okay. So you remember seeing back when I was demonstrating combat. No, let's start here. Right here. This, I think, yeah, this turns off auto playing the character walk music. It makes this kind of always play the proper music. Right here, I modified these functions. These would start playing the vehicle music. So if you go over here, as I poke at things, I remember things I did, so that's nice. The boat, ship, and airship all have music files you could specify. I didn't want them to change which music was being played, because I play specific music while you're on the ocean and things like that. I didn't want them to modify the audio landscape. So I set these all to none. As you can see here, they are empty, set to none. The problem is, when you got in the boat, it would do that. It would set the current music to be no music. I didn't want that. And so I had to go into the code and tell it, don't do music stuff when you get on and off vehicles. Just stop that nonsense. So that's what's going on right here, is I added this to get rid of that. And this theoretically contributes to that some. This wasn't really coming up because of the way that I play music in most zones forces specific music to play. But, you know, here it is nonetheless. And when I say force specific music, it's things like I have events that play the music. I don't in most like towns and stuff, and the world map obviously as well. For giving messages about effectiveness of attacks. So you saw those in battle where it said like, oh, that was resisted a bit. Again, this is to give you some type information. I added a variable here to the result the game action result object, I added the effectiveness variable. So I just grafted this in here. There's something you can do in JavaScript. Is like, I just want to throw this in here. And now it exists. So I was originally trying to figure out how to communicate this message using this highly granular system. You can see here these values. I checked your effectiveness. I have this variable here with the result of it. And I'd say that was poor. And so originally I had like more complicated language kind of mimicking Pokemon, like that wasn't very effective or things like that, or that was super effective. And it ran into a couple of problems. First of all, like it was going to run into the same issues I was talking about earlier of what does a bit more versus slightly versus somewhat mean, which is more, and that could be a little hard to tell. But the bigger issue was it was just too long. I could not effectively fit it on that line. Now I could add a new line, but then the system did not it still looked at it as like one line and didn't properly adjust some of the back boxes and other things. And I could have fixed that, but that seemed like a lot of like poking around further. So I wanted to get it on one line. So then I just went, that was a D+ or whatever. Except the problem with that language was that it became very weird to read and hard to parse quickly. So I added that was poor at D+, right? Because again, C is perfectly normal. That is average. And again, I feel like school is calibrated like C is meaning you're not doing great, but you're doing fine. You're doing fine with a C. It's what it's supposed to mean. But school screws with everything, so let's not go into a rant there. So anyway, this whole thing is what I tried, but this was too much information. It was hard to parse. And like this language, unless you knew what I was doing, this language just doesn't make any sense with some of these. Like, that was great. An A. That was great. A B. Except this is A, B? What's going on here? So it's like, this is nonsense. So I eventually switched over to, we don't need that much information. We don't need that much granular information. It's great in the bestiary. It's great to have that granularity of information in the bestiary, so that way the player can look at the bestiary and be presented with some useful information at a high level. But when you're just fighting things in combat, you just want to know how well did this work. And so I ended up going with a bit simpler system. If you deal less than 1 damage, basically it's in thirds. If you deal less than a third, it was resisted a lot. If you deal between 1/3 and 2/3 of damage, it was resisted. If you deal between 2/3 and 1, it was resisted a bit. 1 gets no message. If it's greater than 1, it excelled a bit. Again, I wanted length here. So I chose excelled because it bluntly was short and communicated the idea that your damage went above and beyond normal. Other language, and it somewhat mimics this that was resisted, that excelled. It somewhat mimics the language here. Resisted works super well. It's perfect. But there's not really a good equivalent for a positive for going above that I could think of. So I talked with my sister some. This is where I kind of settled on stuff. She knows lots of words, theoretically, except for when she has lexical gaps. But anyway, this excelled works really well. It's short. It explains that things are better, and I can use this concise and also mirrored language of that excelled a bit, that excelled, and that excelled a lot. Very similar to that was resisted a bit, that was resisted, that was resisted a lot. And I liked having that mirrored structure there. And so excelled worked for that. So I ended up going with this because it was much more concise, much easier to parse in combat, I think, and kind of gives you something that you can quickly identify that's different. These also all end with periods. These all end with exclamation points. Another little bit of a clue. This is negative. This is positive. Except, I mean, when this happens to you, obviously you want things to be resisted a bit. But I think these messages will help players to be able to navigate the somewhat complicated landscape of weaknesses and resistances that various things have. So anyway, I was reminded of all of that stuff. That was worth going over, I think. But let's go back to our lovely game and our boat. So when I come over here, this plays a different set of music. When it goes to nighttime, this place also just goes like this. Let it play there for a little bit. So This is our elevator. I drew this subway thing. I think I talked about that last time. For the most part, I cobbled it together from some stuff. Let's just go to Yorgot Est. I had a ticket lying around from a previous demonstration of this on the stream. So if you've seen the stream, you've seen this already. So at night, there's just kind of a wind sound playing here in Yorgot Est. When it becomes daytime, it adds some music in. Over here uses a different song entirely. And I fixed that. And it also does not have the wind sound. So if we go to nighttime, it just plays, right? Over here fades that out. Over here gets rid of the wind and begins playing that song. Some areas like Kushigai are kind of like active both day and night, so they get music all around the clock. Other places are not. So if we come up here to Divertier, now this is one of the things that I have a bit of a problem with. The music transition can be very abrupt, right? And I kind of want a bit of a crossfade or something, but that's how things are. Theoretically, you wouldn't just walk through this. When you step on this tile, you would get warped inside something, so. And this place also is like active all times a day, so it gets music all the time. Whee! Just walk through the awning buildings. That was something else that I actually changed. Not being able to walk behind these buildings here was really annoying. You can just modify those settings in tile sets. So stars like this mean you walk over. X's means you can't walk through it. And circles means you walk on top of it. So this is walk under. This is walk over. This is can't walk. And forwarder allows you to be able to turn off walking through it in specific directions if you want. Like, you could say, oh, you can't walk left and right through these if you wanted to by turning those specifically off. You can see, like, arrows mean you can walk and dots mean you can't. You can see some of the specific directional walking on, like, some of these, for example. You can walk anywhere underneath these eaves, but you can't walk down through them. Right, so you may or may not have interacted with this at all, but that's what this does. So this tells you how passage works. Is it at all, and if it is it above or below? So right here you can see this shows below the player. This shows above the player. So you can adjust those things there. There's also train tags. I've never done anything with train tags. I don't know if I will or not, but they're a thing. I haven't really looked at them. You can also specify whether or not things are damaged floors. There are some stuff that are default. Actually, if I go to the overworld, you can see these are default damage floors. They have all these spikies. So walking on those will hurt you. Back to the game. Okay, so that's stuff going on here. Divertier. Over to Yorgot Est. Sacriton. Fades out the music just for night sounds at night here. Tulador does not use night sounds. It uses waves because the ocean is important to them. And then it uses this music. You can still hear the waves in the background. Yeah, adventuring around here in the day. Then the music goes away, it's just the waves again. Then the waves stop, and we come up here. Again, some of those are a little bit more abrupt than I would like them to be in terms of just raw transition. I would have to see how feasible it is to add some sort of fading mechanism. There's not... This is the closest subway access for Mountain Route. Sundire's Surface, I mean, yeah, I can buy one of those. It'll wreck me. I'll show you Island Home, Elsana, Divertier we've already been to, Sacriton. Yeah, let's grab that. Mavina, Evanshire. I mean, we already did Evanshire, but whatever. Falsa, Kaldasha, Galden, Yorgot Est we were at. Mountain Route doesn't go anywhere yet. Let's go to Elsana, sure. So again, I showed these off on the stream, but we'll just do them here as well. Sub plays this during the day. And just goes to standard night sounds at night. A lot of places do some music during the day, standard night sounds at night. So don't expect otherwise. Let's see. Mavina. Also does night sounds at night. But during the day, it's pretty intense here. It's what, like a day to walk around? Yeah, it's like a day to circumnavigate on their road system. This is a more hostile place, so I want to kind of emphasize that with some of the musical choices. Let's see. Sacriton, sure. I don't know why I grabbed Evanshire, we started there. Subway doesn't actually go anywhere different, it just changes a variable. Yeah, this plays this sort of music. It's very monarchical here. And it just goes to night sounds at night. What do you expect? Again, that's pretty typical. Most places go to night sounds. There's going to be interesting to explore. I'm going to have to think a lot about creating stuff for it. I'm not quite sure what the story behind these buildings is going to be. They're definitely from one of the other worlds. I think they're probably from Kushigai. Falsaw, which is going to be heavily inspired by Metal Gear for the enemies. Yeah. So that's that musical choice. You cannot walk through windmills. However, they're a very rules-abiding society, and they go to sleep at night. Because that's my conception of a rules-abiding society, I guess? I don't know. It just seems thematic, like culturally appropriate for them. Divertir and Kushigai are very different places than this one is. Mountain Root doesn't know what night is. So there's that. Let's see, we went to... yep, okay. Kaldisha, let's just go there. Obviously, night sounds at night. Pretty standard. And then this music choice during the day. Which I think fits well thematically with them. Obviously, or I wouldn't have chosen it. So yeah, Kaldisha. Galden. Evanshire we've already been to. I'll end with Sindaris Surface. Yeah, this is Galden. They just go to night sounds at night. Again, pretty typical. Ow, 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 ow. I mean, it's important to know that you're taking damage, but seeing flashes like that all the time is also kind of annoying. Yeah. It doesn't deal much damage. I'll have to look at how that damage stuff is done. Also, footwear can decrease the damage you take from surfaces. And I think some of these characters... I think the ninja and the ranger both have sort of inbuilt decreased damage from damaging floors. Let's just go to Island Home. And then we'll wrap up by getting my butt kicked by some fire imps. How's that sound? So here's Isle Home. Hooray! Like I said, it spawns your boat here, so that way you can take it places. This actually works as a fire, by the way. This is part of Kendra, so it's just going to play Kendra music here. The standard stuff we've heard a bajillion times at this point. Okay. Let's actually go ahead and drop a save here. And let's go to Sindara's surface for no good reason. Subway ticket to Sindara's surface. This is Sindara's surface. It has no music. It just plays the sound all the time. Also, fire imps. Ooh, I got the group with 4 fire imps. I'll be curious to see how these things actually feel when I'm with characters that are level 60. They should be not terribly difficult is the idea, but we'll find out. Let's backstab one of them. Ooh, poison strike. She's still fast. I mean, I'll take a few hits. A few. Ooh, poisoned it even. Heroic Gaze, Mishizo. I mean, I'm taking this semi-seriously. Bandage Wound Sir Lionel. Backstab this guy. Critical hit that guy, I guess? We're gonna get, hey, got a counterattacker. They can use Incinerating Fury, and if like a couple of them choose to do that, we are screwed. Right. Blitz, because why not attack everyone? Encouragement. Actually, let's From the Shadows that guy. I think it deals less damage, but yeah, it's resisted. But it does curse it. I'm getting vaguely lucky in that these guys are all just attacking me. Oh, there's Incinerating Fury. Being raged makes you take double damage, by the way. So that's why you get wiped by fire imps. I could potentially beat them if they didn't have Incinerating Fury, just off of attacking alone. But game over is, of course, not game over. You just respawn at the next spot. Does it give you... No, you do need to make sure you're interacting with the Res Shrine after... Nope, you do get your Resic charges back. Or maybe I just don't use them in the first place. Anyway, that's... I think that covers everything that I need to go over. Boy, there's a lot of stuff there that came up at the end. But yeah, so the game is coming along. And there have been quite a few advances. And I really like the bestiary. I am super, 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 super proud of the bestiary. Hello, adventurers kits. Oh yeah, subway ticket differences kind of mess with that. So, you know, we can learn all about the Plate Scorpion and how they have devastating critical hits, but they're good sources of crystal shards and mystical dusts used for crafting, casting magical equipment. Yeah. And you should use lightning and striking damage against them. The swords aren't great. They're okay. Wind is terrible. Somewhat. Not good. Anyway, that's going to wrap stuff up for me today. So thank you all very much for watching, for listening. Yeah, there's some links down below, I guess. And until next time, take care, everyone. Goodbye.